When I found out I was going to be a parent, I immediately felt a lot of anxiety and worry. So I went on to BetterHelp to try to look for a therapist to help me with that.
My relationship with my family and with my boyfriend and with myself were suffering. I really needed help.
I was ruminating a lot. Really getting those thoughts out to a therapist and getting feedback was just life-changing.
Discover what BetterHelp Online Therapy can do for you. Visit BetterHelp.com today.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
He is retired from the DEA. When he's with the Omaha, Nebraska Police Department, he had a coworker that was shot and killed in the line of duty. He's here to talk about that and two distinct types of drug labs that he encountered during his career. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Joining us on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we have Charles Noonan. Charles is retired from the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. Before that, he worked with the Omaha Police Department. He was in Omaha when his coworker was shot and killed on a car stop. He'll talk about that. He'll talk about a couple different drug labs he experienced during his DEA career. His website is haztacsi.com. That's HAZTACSI.com. Charles, thanks for your service, and thanks for being guest on Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Both very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
And by the way, Charles is a neighbor. He's in South Florida. So it's almost like old home week. We're both talking about how we got to get out of this place. It's crazy.
The exodus is amazing.
It is. We're not even going to get into because that's a conversation for a different day. I want to go to your career. You started your policing career with the Omaha, Nebraska Police Department. Tell us about that.
Well, if I can, I actually started 8 years in the military. I was a security police officer before Omaha, and 4 years after that, I was part of the drug team in Europe and became an OSI agent, which is the Air Force Offices of Special Investigations. After that, I was an Omaha police officer, yes.
That's, by the way, thanks for your service, not just in the police department and DEA, but also in, was it Air Force, you said?
Yes.
Appreciate it very much. You're not a stranger to law enforcement when you walked in, and I really don't understand and comprehend the military police world. It's a different world than, and I'm air quoting, civilian police. Did you see a big difference?
I can't say the only difference is you're enforcing military law, but the amazing thing about me, my last 4 years, I never wore a uniform. I had long hair. I had very unique positions where I just ran around buying drugs. And anything that affected the government to the U.S. Air Force operations, that includes drug use, that's why I was out doing that, both on base and in the off-base area around the military bases. I used to actually go TDY quite a bit to other locations doing drug operations, just as an undercover kind of travel consultant, but I was part of the Air Force. When
you left the Air Force, is that when you started with the Omaha, Nebraska Police Department?
Yeah, shortly after, that's when I came on with Omaha.
Are you from Omaha originally, or from that area?
I am from Colon, Nebraska, which is about 40 miles directly west of Omaha. It's a very small, it's actually a village, 110 people still today. Very small town.
So it wasn't a stretch for you to go to the next largest city, because a lot of people, where I worked in Baltimore, we had a lot of guys, and say guys, that's men and women from New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. They were recruiting everywhere, but you were from that area before you joined the police department.
Absolutely, yes.
And during your career, I hate to say this, there's, and I always say this all the time, if you are a police officer in the United States for any period of time, you're going to get dinged up. You're going to see some horrible things. And you had a situation where a coworker was shot and killed in the line of duty.
Yes, James B. Wilson, Jimmy Wilson, was killed on August 20th, 1995. That was actually just before I left Omaha to go to DEA. But he was actually coming to meet us for dinner. We were about to go out on a drug operation. He was going to cover us with his patrol car. We were in plain clothes. And he just saw a vehicle with a hanging plate. He ran it with fictitious tag. And as soon as he pulled over the car, the van didn't even stop rolling. The gangbanger member jumped out and came out with an AK and just strafed his car and killed Jimmy while he had his microphone still in his hand trying to call it out.
How old was Jimmy when this happened?
I don't know Jimmy's age at that time. Excuse me, I'm sorry, he's 24.
24,
yeah,
okay.
24.
He was a young guy. And unfortunately...
His father was a well-known homicide detective with Omaha PD.
Right. And here's the thing, and granted, I worked in Baltimore for many years, but we don't think, at least I don't think of Omaha, Nebraska as being a violent place, but it is.
It's the Midwest transaction point between LA and New York. Every gang has people there. Every time a gang member in New York, LA, or anywhere gets in trouble where they're at, they come to Omaha to try and lay low, and of course they don't stop being who they are.
Right.
So it's kind of a Midwest just transaction point, and it's a super highway for drugs going all over.
Were you working when Jimmy was killed?
I was on the street with him. Like I said, he was coming to meet us for dinner. We were just getting ready to go out and do some drug buys. We were in a plainclothes car, and he was going to cover us with his cruiser.
One of the things that I've learned over time is I can talk about officers being killed in a relatively, almost like testifying in court. People that I worked with, people that I was friends with, people that I was connected with. However, that doesn't really touch the emotional part of it. Is it still an emotional topic for you?
I looked him up just before this. I did the eulogy at his funeral.
Yeah.
Jimmy was part of our crew, a very meaningful young man. And again, his family has a very strong, long history of law enforcement tradition. And he just got started. So yeah, it's not wasn't an easy night, and it's still not easy today.
No, and I mean that as a compliment because I can talk about things. But here's people that didn't go through this. I always say this: good for you. You didn't go through this. They tend to think that other people are not being sincere because they can talk about it in a relatively unemotional way, and that is an acquired skill set. At least it is for me.
Yeah, it's something you get used to because again, you see things a lot. But on that personal level, we pulled up to his car as soon as the call went out. You stop what you're doing. We're waiting for him to show up. We hear the helping officer go out, which is at 3 beeps, and everybody rolls. So
right.
We rolled over, and we would have never been. You couldn't tell it was Jimmy unless you saw it. We noticed the car number. It was just a very graphic scene.
And did that play a part in? You said earlier, and by the way, we used the uniform patrol officers quite a bit. When I say used, we used them because we were in plain clothes, and you had to have an element that was marked with the patrol car and a uniformed officer. Was that the case with you and Jimmy?
Well, that night, that was the plan. And of course, that makes sense. If you don't plan for that and you're in plain clothes, you're kind of missing the point on safety and what you need to do. It's always nice to have a uniformed officer nearby because when you roll up in plain clothes, you don't look like a cop, you don't act and you don't dress like a cop. So when you get out, of course, people can mistake you. They think sometimes you're ripping people off.
Yeah. That's what I always got. By the way,
car with you, it keeps people in line.
I always say this. I'm a cop through and through, a Neanderthal knuckle-dragging cop, and I'll probably be the 80-year-old in the old folks home. People, there's 5-0 when I go by with a walker. We're talking with Charles Noonan, retired DEA. He was an Omaha, Nebraska police officer, and a coworker named Jimmy who was shot and killed on a car stop. And his website is haztacsi.com. That's HAZTACSI.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We return, we'll talk about a couple of drug labs that he's familiar with during his police career. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Be sure to follow me on the Clubhouse app. It's like having your own talk radio station on your phone. And best of all, it is free. Be sure to follow me, John J. Wiley, at LET Radio Show, and look for major announcements. That's right. The Clubhouse app is free, and be sure to follow me, John J. Wiley, or at LET Radio Show for major announcements. That's John J. Wiley or at LET Radio Show on the Clubhouse app. Did I mention that it is free?
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Return conversation with Charles Noonan, retired DEA. Before that, he was an Omaha, Nebraska police officer. Before that, he was an Air Force veteran, and he worked as a military police officer with the Air Force. His website, by the way, is haztacsi.com. It's HAZTACSI.com. Before we went to break, Charles, you talked about doing a eulogy at Jimmy's funeral. So you guys obviously were a lot closer than a lot of people would suspect.
Yeah, we were on the same crew. We spent a lot of time off duty together, as well as on the street.
And that's one of the things I found that I missed the most when I retired from police work, because I always tell people, these men and women became like my extended family. We went to each other's weddings, funerals, birthdays, christenings, you name it. We had barbecues. We did all that stuff. And when I retired, it was like that door was shut, and I never could quite recapture that.
Yeah, it's a lot of us stay together. Like we have a group of retired guys that work in Miami area. We all get together about once a month for a lunch, and a couple of us still try and get together here and there. But yeah, it changes, especially when you get away from uniform patrol and uniform police.
Totally different. It's a different ball of wax. And by the way, I was detailed to the DEA in Baltimore for about 2 years, and I remember me and my partner, who's also a Baltimore City Police detective, had to fly down to Miami to locate the source. And it was a different world than we were used to. Did you find that when you made the transition from Omaha to Miami with the DEA that it was different?
Well, you have to look at the Miami area. Of course, that's where I wanted to go, and I was lucky enough to get to. I mean, Miami, that's what you think of when you think DEA. There is the drug world and drug game down there. We have the street level. We have every level, but we also have what they call square groupers, bales of cocaine, sometimes washing up on shore even. It's just the drug trade down there is just a different world.
I remember, and I got to ask you this before we go into your story. My first day, when we drove down there, we got to rent a car. Then we drove by DEA and like, unless it's a couple kilos, don't bother calling us. Here's some radios, good luck. And that was the end of it. But we drove by and we saw go fast boats for the customs, for the DEA, and they had all the equipment. We had nothing.
Well, you're talking about when you go back in the day. Now it seems like, I got to tell you, Miami-Dade County, Broward County, a lot of agencies have a lot better funding and a lot better equipment than what they used to. But on the state and local level, federally we have money that goes into programs. A lot of the money, and one of the programs for us is Client Lab, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about. But Yeah, the funding and the equipment is all that is important to be able to get the job done, especially in that high-level trafficking regions.
You wanted to make this move, and Miami was a different beast. It still is in some ways, but I think it's indicative of a problem that's all over the United States. It's not just a local thing.
No, and as I said, as much as I say it's different, it was a different environment. It's where you wanted to be. You would run into I worked a lot of international cases. I went undercover internationally, even to Colombia twice. You have opportunities there, I would say, that you don't have in some of the other offices in the central parts of the United States, but you're still doing the same work. A lot of times the more dangerous work is that street level work, and anybody in law enforcement, especially working narcotics, knows that. A lot of the big guys, you even see all these big cartel people, as soon as they know they're done, they'll turn themselves in because they know it's either that or they're going to end up on the street dead, getting arrested. So they'll turn themselves in, and then they'll turn to state's evidence a bunch of other people. It's almost civilized versus the street. The street is where all the dangerous things happen, like with Jimmy.
And by the way, with the feds, besides the equipment, another thing we had, when I say feds, the DEA, another thing we had was when they went on federal charges, and this is to say they were convicted, and let's just say the sentence was 25 years. They did every bit of 25 years, and it was a different leverage and different kind of hammer than state charges.
That's true, but I have to tell you, I bought a lot of heroin in Miami, and I have to tell you that I'd rather take my heroin cases to the state court because people don't know this. A lot of folks, if you're dealing with heroin, 25 grams, that's 1 ounce or more, is a 25-year minimum mandatory sentence in the state, versus federally you'd be looking at probably three years for a smaller amount like that, unless you get up into the massive kilos. So sometimes the system works. Sometimes actually both ways. It can bounce back a little bit.
So Charles, during your DEA career, you became kind of an expert in drug labs.
Yeah, I ran our drug program for quite a while, or was heavily involved in it for 20 years. I ran the program for the Miami Division office and did a lot of cases and supervised operations, even up in Orlando, other places, because of my level of experience.
And when we say drug labs, I think of, and this is the ignorant part of me because I'm familiar with heroin. I worked in Baltimore when crack came in and just changed the landscape totally. But I'm familiar with heroin, crack, cocaine, also PCP. PCP labs were a thing in Maryland, not so much in Baltimore. But I don't think of things. I think of methamphetamine labs, and I think of out in the country.
Yeah, a lot of people do, but being in Miami, there is a lot of money in Miami, as you can imagine, a lot of wealthy people, and there's also a lot of partying. It's a party life with high money and high value, so we actually get a lot of kind of less common labs in Miami. We used to lead the country in MDMA or Molly type labs, which is a synthetic lab, but yeah, methamphetamine, now fentanyl pill mills are the big thing. We do have fentanyl laboratories, production labs, very rare. But the thing that took over for me my last probably 8 years is I concentrated mostly on pill mills and people that were taking fentanyl, mixing it with cutting agents and with colored powders and binders, and then pressing pills, fake Xanibars or Xanax, fake Oxy 30s, fake Oxy 80s, etc. They were making these fictitious pills, and that's what's been out killing all these people. They all overdose because when they mix it together, they don't do it right. So you get hot pills, and then you get some pills that have nothing in them.
And that's the thing. I always say this, and people don't like it. Look, I'm a straight shooter. Or straight edge is what they use. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't take any drugs. I don't do anything. I try not to even curse. I'm trying to eat healthier. But when it comes to illegal drugs, you just don't know what you're getting.
You're never going to know what you're getting. It's impossible. Even with marijuana, a lot of it's laced. A lot of it has other drugs incorporated into it nowadays, but also the potency I did a lot of marijuana grows in the Miami area. I was kind of known for that as well.
People love to make it sound like that's a harmless drug. We're talking about Charles Noonan. He's retired DEA, and he became an expert on drug labs, which will return that conversation in a few moments. Before that, he was in Air Force, military police, and then he went to Omaha, Nebraska Police Department, and his website is HazTacSI.com. That's HazTacSI.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on YouTube.com. And be sure to subscribe. Like everything we do, it is free. Look for and subscribe to Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on YouTube for great police videos and episodes of the podcast.
During a conversation with Charles Noonan on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Charles contacted us from South Florida. He's a neighbor. He's a retired DEA. And before DEA, he was an Omaha, Nebraska police officer. Before that, he was an Air Force military police officer. And his website is HazTacSI.com, HazTacSI.com. And during his career, became a bit of an expert when it comes to drug labs. That's an area I really don't know much about.
Well, it's something that's I'm actually concerned it's going to start having a resurgence of because of the supply chains being cut down on the northern southern border with Canada and Mexico, and got great enforcement efforts coming. I hope that's not the case, but they are very dangerous and kind of toxic environments if it's a true production lab.
I think about that quite often, be honest with you, when I'm walking my dog in the morning or at night in West Palm Beach, going by the Intercoastal, and I start thinking about square groupers. I start thinking about the elements that are required in the labs to create these things, and the bad guys that come with it. Am I out of line when it comes to that?
No, it's no, yeah, you're dead on. You're taking chemicals like drain opener and ammonia gas, red phosphorus, and you're taking these elements together, mixing them with a precursor, and you're making a drug. But they leave a toxic mess behind.
And one of the things
while they're cooking, they create toxic gases and all kinds of very dangerous byproducts of the process.
And one of the things I don't understand is that consumer, like I go to a big box store, let's just call it that, and I need to buy Sudafed, and it's like, that's locked down. It's under lock and key. You got to provide ID because of drug labs.
That's absolutely correct. The whole reason that was enacted across the entire nation is because cold medicine, especially Sudafed, any kind of ephedrine-based cold medication, ephedrine or pseudoephedrine is a precursor for methamphetamine.
Yeah.
So they actually convert that into methamphetamine with a chemical process.
Here's the other thing I don't get, and Hollywood, I got to take them to task on this. When they do, let's just say in your case, drug labs, they always use these shady, crazy, crime-ridden looking studios or locations. A lot of South Florida has these high-rise condos that are fabulous to look at, and your first drug lab or the first case you want to talk about was in one of those locations, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was actually in a beautiful high-rise on Miami Beach. It was in 2014 during Ultrafest. Ultrafest is a big music festival with electronic music, dance music. So we always have a very large, especially synthetic drug presence there. This person decided to cook up a nice couple batches of dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT. Most recently, it's kind of been made prevalent by Joe Rogan. He talks about it quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
We've actually seen an uptick of DMT labs in the last decade, especially in the last 5 years. But, yeah, this gentleman was producing it in his wonderful, beautiful high-rise hotel.
And before you get into the details of that, I remember when I was a kid, a teenager, a long time ago, people asked me, hey, you want to take acid? And I'm like, no. People are flying off buildings. They're dying from that stuff. You're talking about MDMA, DMT, other stuff. I have no idea what you're talking about nowadays.
Well, the blueprint of drugs, you've got heroin, and then because of fentanyl, a lot of people don't realize there was, they called it China White back in the 80s. Fentanyl was around in the 80s, and it was killing people. It just, people seemed to be smart enough, and there was enough action taken at that time to stop it. And people got scared. Now you'll have people say that that's what they want. They want that fent. They want the strong stuff. There are so many different chemical alterations you can make to any drug or any chemical to make it stronger, to make your high seem more high. As you know, anybody who's a user who's ever used drugs, what they're going after is what we call chasing the dragon. They're trying to get that same high, that same euphoric feeling they got the first time. So when you chase the dragon, but your body gets used to it, you're always looking for more and more. So the stronger, longer, what they consider to be a better high.
And going back to this drug lab, was this guy an opportunist, or was this something that's the way he regularly supplemented his income?
He has a history of it, but a lot of people will just all of a sudden, maybe they'll be a user, and sometimes they'll go online, they'll see a recipe they can get off of the dark web, or it used to be a website called The Beehive. It's been shut down a long time ago by DEA, but they used to have all these red recipes for drugs.
Just because to show you
instructions and equipment you needed to buy.
I know nothing about that. And I fancy myself as a guy who's in the know, who knows a lot of things. I know nothing about that.
Well, that's the problem right now. Is a lot of our drug labs reduced greatly over the last 15 years, especially over the last 10. And the last 6 years were horrible with wide open borders. So much high quality fentanyl, methamphetamine was coming over the border. We have seen a drastic reduction in drug labs. So we've lost a lot of people with experience responding to drug labs. And you have to have specialized training. You have to have good awareness training and ability to understand what you're dealing with. We've had officers die just by picking up a bottle and smelling it, which is kind of a normal thing a person would do when they're investigating. We've had officers die just from taking a whiff from a bottle.
And by the way, this brings me back to my old days, and I had very, very little experience with, I want to say synthetic drugs, but PCP had a distinct smell, and that would always give me a headache, horrible headache.
PCP is one of the worst. There's three what we call level A labs: PCP, fentanyl, and LSD. It's a couple of them you've already mentioned. So those are actual production labs. They actually create toxins that will absorb right through the skin. So you have to have special level A, what we call a fully encapsulating suit. Kind of talking too technical here, but it's a suit that you have to step inside of, and they actually close you up inside of it.
When you look back and say this was, as a trained investigator, I know is one way of looking at things, and it's totally different than the people on the outside. Did you see something with this high-rise condo that led you to believe that this guy was trouble?
Well, no. The way we discovered him, I respond to explosions and to all kind of police activity. This was a gentleman. He decided to take his DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, which is a psychedelic drug similar to LSD. It just doesn't tend to last as long as in the high. But he had sampled it. And he was naked on his balcony threatening to jump.
Oh, he kind of draw attention to himself.
Yeah, so he kind of drew the police there. So uniform officers showed up, kicked the door open, went and saved the man. And as they were walking out with him, they looked around the room and realized that they had just ran into a mess.
And by the way, they were not immune to the potential side effects of going in to rescue this guy. Am I wrong?
No, and that's the problem is you go in there, and if you're wrestling with someone, now you're breathing in a lot, you're breathing harder, so you're inhaling all the toxic fumes that might be in the room, in the area. So yeah, every time an unknowing or unwitting person goes into a drug lab, they're being exposed to dangerous chemicals and and the potential for having a dosing. So there's decontamination has to take place. A lot of issues that a lot of people just don't think about.
We're talking with Charles Noonan, retired DEA. And before that, he worked at the Omaha, Nebraska Police Department and a coworker killed in the line of duty, which he talked about. And before that, he is an Air Force military police officer, which he talked about as well. His website is HazTacSI.com. That's HazTacSI.com. In return, we'll talk about another drug lab and his experience and what everyone should be aware of when it comes to drug labs and hazards. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Are you a fan of true crime shows? How about True Crime with a Twist? People that actually investigated crimes, what they did, what they experienced, all for free. Just go to our website, letradio.com. It's L as in Lincoln, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, radio.com. Turn our conversation with Charles Noonan on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Charles, retired DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. Before that, he was the Omaha, Nebraska Police Department. Had a coworker shot and killed in line of duty, which he talked about earlier. Before that, he is a military police officer for the Air Force, which we did talk about. And he's become a bit of an expert when it comes to drug labs and drugs in general. His website is HazTacSI.com. That's HazTacSI.com. Charles, again, thank you for your service and thanks for enlightening us about this. And I'm imagine, by the way, I remember thinking that you get called for a naked person, whatever you're doing in the street, there's going to be some sort of yeehaw moment. It's going to be great. It never was. It's always bad. It was always horrific. When you said this guy was naked and screaming and signifying and drawing attention, but my first thought was the police that responded, and they didn't know what they walked into, did they?
No, they had no idea. And again, they were thinking and they were focused on saving a person's life. They saw someone who needed help, who was going through some type of a mental episode, which drew them into a very toxic environment. They did save him. They did save his life. But it drew them into a drug lab that was just a mess to be a part of.
And by the way, I've been happily married my wife and I have been together 30 years. Our first marriage didn't survive police work. But one of the things I always tell her is always be attentive to their clothing. If they're wearing clothing that is too hot for the environment, the weather, especially in South Florida, it's a dead indicator that there's an emotionally disturbed person. If they're naked, it's a dead giveaway there's something going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That is kind of something that makes you think when you're walking down the street and somebody's walking by naked. It's what we in law enforcement, it's what we call a clue.
It's a clue for sure. I want to go into the second. This is also a drug lab that was in another affluent neighborhood, correct?
Actually, yes, just a little bit north of Miami Beach is Bell Harbor, and this was in a $1.5 million condo, literally on the beach in Bell Harbor, Florida. And very messy type of lab because it's what we call a poly lab. A poly lab means they're doing more than one process. So he was making meth with the red phosphorus method. He was also doing BHO reduction, which is a flammable environment. And he was working on trying to make MDMA as well.
And these labs, first thing I think of, and I'm going to say this again, I'm a rookie when it comes to stuff. I know nothing about this, but first thing I think of is Breaking Bad, and everything seems so scientific. Is it like that in real life?
It is scientific because you're using science and chemicals and to change the chemical makeup of something, but it doesn't mean you need to be a chemist. If you follow simple instructions and steps, it's going to work for you. But that doesn't mean that's like giving trying to make some kind of a very effective explosive. And we run into explosive labs all the time when we're doing this too. Sometimes they're kind of misidentified as a drug lab. Sometimes we identify explosive labs. But it's like trying to do that on a small little kid's chemistry set. It's never smart to do complex chemical operations in a unprofessional settings.
And speaking of unprofessional settings, that's all I was used to. We had situations where dogs had their vocal cords surgically removed, stairs were missing, and explosive devices, all that stuff in drug labs. You had to be aware of that there's always a potential for a threat. Was that similar for you?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't happen very often in law enforcement here in the United States, but the idea of a booby trap or some type of IUD is more likely to happen in a drug lab by far than most other type of police operations.
When you experience all this, there's no way you can go through any kind of law enforcement career we talked about earlier in the conversation, not get dinged up, not be changed mentally. You've kind of seen both ends of the spectrum, 3 ends of the spectrum. Would you say that you have been changed in a negative way, a positive way, or just comes with territory?
It comes with the territory. It has affected me throughout my life. I mean, you end up dealing with things that you see and losses you have and everything else. And you also see the pain and the absolute foolishness of some people, especially drug addicts. And if you're dealing with methamphetamine, you're talking about some of the worst drug addicts there are in the world. So, yeah, you see things, and it does tend to change you. You tend to have a different kind of sense of humor. You have a different type of way of dealing with folks, and it can definitely have a decent effect on you, unfortunate effect.
And one of the things that you and I have in common, we're both in South Florida, and what a lot of people don't realize, in Palm Beach County and Broward County, it's a recovery capital of the United States, and there's people that have been sober for decades, and then they go back to what they think is heroin, and you get a little hot shot of fentanyl, and they die, and they're dying quickly, and they're dying very, I'll just say, not Hollywood-style deaths. I'm sure you've seen some of that in your lifetime.
Oh, yeah. I've had to respond to a lot of bodies in hotel rooms, in condos. Again, like I told you, explosions, fires. There's a lot of stuff that surrounds, especially the drug lab world, but just in law enforcement in general.
So let's switch gears. Let's talk about what you're doing today. Eventually, you retire from the DEA. And what a lot of people do is, look, I was guilty as the next guy. I thought I'd open an Irish tavern and write a book. Thank God I didn't do either one, because I'd be lousy at the book, and I'd be the worst bartender ever. What prompted you to do what you do today?
Well, I was always in training while I was even in the military. I started law enforcement and military training back in, believe it or not, 1985. And I was a trainer for, pardon?
You're a geezer.
I'm up there. I was a trainer. I had just gotten certified in Omaha. I was only there for 3.5 years. They had wanted me to get certified. And then I went to DEA, and I immediately started teaching for DEA. I have a very broad background in training and the basics of law enforcement, also more advanced, such as when I left, while I was in DEA, I was teaching hazardous materials tactical operations to SWAT teams, because a lot of teams don't realize that sometimes they run into these things unwittingly during a tactical operation, and when they get in there, they need to know how to respond to a drug lab. Same thing with fentanyl. We have a lot of SWAT teams that are hitting fentanyl production labs where they're actually pilling and milling. A lot of time they're not wearing their respiratory protection. We've had 2 incidents that I was involved in with our office, DEA in Miami, where they actually had one of our agents go down and 3 canines go down because somebody thought it was a good idea to run dogs through a fentanyl operation.
Right.
So yeah, that's a big part of what some of the training I do, but that's what I do. I teach a lot and try to speak about the dangers of drug labs and work with law enforcement, younger folks right now.
And your website, HazTacSI.com. That's HazTacSI.com. Is that an offshoot of what you do?
It is. It's short. It's an acronym for Hazmat Tactical Solutions International. So HazTacSI. Right now, actually, our website just is being moved. So right now it's down, but it's going to be up back up here shortly. But yeah, that's where that comes from, is HazTacSI. It's Hazmat Tactical Solutions International.
And can people contact you there about training or speaking?
I definitely can. Also, my email is train, as in training, TRAIN, the number 2 win. So train to win with the number 2 between at HasTechSI.com. I can be reached there as well. I can also be reached through the So Right company. Actually, no, So Right. The So Right. This is based out of Tennessee. It's actually a company that they reached out to me because they have a decontamination solution. It actually kills fentanyl in 60 seconds.
That's exactly what this guy told me about. It's pretty amazing. We didn't have all the tools that we have nowadays, and I'm thank you for having the tools. I thank you for sharing your story on Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and for your service as well. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right, John. Thank you. Take care.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or 2 or 3. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.